Today I'm going to study ImGui and try to incorporate Threepp on ImGui. But realistically, I'm probably not going to do anything, just study the library. I'm just going to wait to see if it's streaming. Sometimes it takes a while, I think. It says here that it's streaming, but I'm not seeing on YouTube. Oh, now it's showing up. So to be honest, it's kind of frustrating. I was trying to make it work in this project here. And I think I'm going to try to do it with ImGui, glfw, and Threepp. And I'm not going to use Raylib. Raylib seems to be very good. I like it very much. And probably, I was like, we'll see, but I think that maybe I'll end up coming back around to Raylib because it seems like it is very simple library and it's very easy to set it up. But I think that from the research that I did, seems that it's probably better to do it like separate because I need another instead of using RayGui, which is a user interface library for Raylib. I should probably use something else to create the GUI elements because it seems that most of the people use other libraries. And then the options that I've seen, there is MX widget, I think, or something like that, MW widget. Or I think it's MX widget, and then there's Qt widget, I think, as well. And the thing that I didn't like about Qt is that apparently you need a license or something like that. So I didn't like that very much, but it seems to be the one that people use the most. And then I tried WX widget, but I didn't like very much. So the other one that is mostly used is ImGui. So it took me a massive amount of time to figure it out how to build it. So like I had to create another project because I was trying to build on this one. And this one I was trying to build Threepp with ImGui. And the problem is that I couldn't do it because I don't understand very well what is going on, but I think it has to do with this file here. I changed the file now. Maybe if I do Control Z. No, this is on generated. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to. Yeah, so this was the code that they had here. And the way that they did this, so like you can see the name is different. So the way that this works is that it depends on the way that you're gonna compile and link everything, as far as I understand now, but I don't understand exactly how it's replaced. I think it is, like I got all this code from the project and I made some modifications on the CMake list file, so I can try to compile. And I think it was this line here that includes this other CMake file that is gonna run. So I separated this file into another one because I didn't want to put all these paths here on the same CMake file. And the way that you connect them is just using add subdirectory. So I put this other CMake on the source, and then I put add subdirectory, and then it runs it. It gives me access to this code here. So I'm using this environment variables to put all these files based on this this environment variable on here, and I'm manually trying to link the CVP files and include the headers manually into the project, into the target. And when I add this, I didn't comment the other stuff out, so like it was running, but then now I decided to comment it out. And so basically this line here runs this other CMake file. And I think this is the CMake file that creates the code. So like as it's building the code, it's gonna create all the shader code. So it's gonna replace this code with the other one that I had, this code here. Like I got this from the generated build, this path here. After it generates everything, it translates the other file into this code here. So assume what it's doing is just replacing the patterns there that it puts, and there is something about those patterns. I think some of these names here. So it just replaces the patterns with the code, whatever code it puts here, and then it probably creates all the files, the shader files, automatically as well. So all these header files here that have the shader code for each one, based on whatever it is here. But I think that this is the thing that is giving me an issue, because when I try to compile, now it seems that it is working. It is working, but when I run, it's giving me this symbols here, this problem with the symbols. So I had this before, and usually when this happens is that something goes on the linking process, that for some reason it compiles everything, but then when you actually execute the program, it can't find the source files, the definition for the functions that were declared. And I think it has to do with this shader, because that's the errors that I was getting, is all related to the shader chunk on some of the files, object files. So it's very annoying. And I hated the way that he did it here, to be honest, because it feels like, and this is kind of an overall thing about C++ actually that I'm feeling so far, is that it seems that the feeling that I get is that it's a lot more complicated than it has to be. That's the problem that I have. Like most of this stuff, especially for the CMake stuff and the building the project, it feels like it's a lot more complicated than it has to be. One thing that I didn't look into, but maybe I should at some point, is that the way that I understand now, based on ChatGPT responses, is whatever you put here, whatever path you put inside of this target include directory, like this is an environment variable that is going to find the absolute path to the project you are currently working on, where the CMake list file is at. So whatever you put inside of here is going to include the header files, but it only includes one level beneath, let's say, or one level inside of the thing. So here, for example, if I include the path include here, it's just going to go to this path. So it includes everything that is one level below and like two levels, one subfolder below. So all the header files here, based on this path, all the header files and all the header files that are on the level of this. So these other ones here, but it's not going to include the ones that are like two levels beneath. Not sure if it's beneath. So this one it doesn't include, so you have to manually include all the other ones. Then one thing that I wanted to see if I can find is one that just includes everything, like regardless of how many levels. So like something like putting the wild character like this, but I think that this doesn't work. So I don't understand why. Like it seems to me, maybe I don't know, maybe it's just like lack of experience, but I think that if all projects just put all the header files inside of the include folder, and then there was some pattern to like a wildcard that you can replace and specify everything. So if there was the standard of putting all the headers inside of the include and putting all the source inside of the source, the CPP files, then I don't see why like it wouldn't be a lot easier to just include everything. But then you also have dependencies, but like that would be really simple in my mind as well, because all you have to do is just put like a command, and there are commands like that on CMake, like fetch declare, where it loads the package, it puts everything. But I think that it has to do as well that's like some libraries are dynamic, so that Windows has to figure out where they are, and then you have all this complexity of the paths. It's very annoying. So I think what I'm gonna try to do is just I created this other project here that is just the simple ImGui example, and this one also wasn't working. But this one I figured out is because you have to manually specify OpenGL here. So it's some other project. I think the OpenGL tutorial one I wasn't specifying here and it's still working. I'm not really sure now. I have to see. So I don't understand why I had to specify here, but because I wasn't specifying, it wasn't compiling everything. And then I just changed the place of the files on side of the ImGui project to make it easier to include the source files here and the header. And then you have to link based on this. I think you can use OpenGL here as well. Just write OpenGL. So both GL, FW, and OpenGL. Another annoying thing is that you have to use this glad here. So I have to download this from a GitHub, I think. Then you put on this format, and then when you include this path here, is gonna allow you to import this. And this is another confusing thing that I don't understand very well, but it seems that the reason why this is used sometimes is because this just puts a bunch of function pointers on this header file that allows you to interface with OpenGL. Because OpenGL, this is the part that I'm not 100% sure, but I think is like encoded inside of the GPU. So the only way to access whatever happens inside of OpenGL is to have function pointers for each thing that you want to do. So if you don't want to write, if you don't want to write everything, then it makes more sense to download this file. But then you have to include this and specify, and it can be kind of annoying. I was having problems with this one as well on the other project. So I was trying to avoid having to do everything from scratch because it's going to be a lot of work. So there's a lot of files here, but I think I'm going to have to do that. So there's no way. So I'm just going to have to accept that it's going to take a long time and then try to do one by one. But this one, I managed to make it work after I did this. And now it seems like it is working with the executable. Like I just took the code from a basic tutorial, I think from ImGui. And what I'm gonna do is just try to, because this tutorial they integrate OpenGL 3 with ImGui, so I'm gonna try to see what are the functions that are responsible for creating the OpenGL. Because this is another thing that I don't know very well, is like the distinction between the GUI elements and the OpenGL. And there's another thing that the reason why I'm thinking that's probably better to do ImGui is because on the thing that I'm thinking about doing, I'm not 100% sure, obviously, but it's very possible that I'm gonna have several different like routes, let's say. So several different visualizations. And I don't understand what is the best way to manage this state. Because like, let's say you have a graph on one window, and then you have a button that you click and it changes to another like page, let's say. Then how do you, like what happens with the previous page? Do you lose the state or not? And how should you manage that? So this is the kind of thing that I don't know very well. I'm gonna try to see if I can understand now. So this is basically the example that they give you there. The other thing is obviously changing the style here. I'm gonna see if it's possible. But I think I'm just gonna do that very later on. But it seems to be very good, like with not that much work here. To call the functions to do everything. So the main thing that I wanna see is probably this function here. So how, because another thing is like when you, there's a button there that allows you to change the color, and that changes the color. So I assume that the drawing is being done with the context of OpenGL inside of one of these functions here, and then the GUI elements are from ImGui. So once I understand that, then what I'm going to try to do is just incorporate the functions like one function at a time from Threepp. So I think it's this thing here. So when you change, it changes the background color. So let's see, clear color. This is another thing that I'm not sure. Is if there's a way to do kind of like a hot reloading, so I don't have to keep executing. Maybe I should ask ChatGPT that. But I think there's probably maybe there is, but the issue is that you have to recompile everything. Maybe there's a way to set it up, but it might be annoying as well. Set it up so when you do, like when you press Ctrl S or something like that, it closes everything, recompiles, and then runs again. Not really sure if that's possible. I'm not gonna worry about that now. Just too many things to think about. So I think initialize this in the beginning. There is a create context, I think, function. So GLFW is the library responsible for creating the window, and then ImGui is just the library for creating the GUI elements and handling the context, I think, from OpenGL. Yeah, so this function here probably initializes the context. And so probably this keeps track of like all the different scenes you have, let's say. So there's probably different states for different scenes. There's also this other file here that I don't understand how this was created, but I think once you run the thing for the first time, it creates this. So maybe there's a cache or something like that. And it's gonna be difficult in the beginning because there's so much stuff to just see. This is gonna be the same context there. I'm trying to figure out. This beginning function is probably not gonna be related. I think pretty much the way that all the applications are gonna work is just a bunch of structs that maintain states, and then you have the flow of data, which is based on control flow in the application. And that's all the libraries are probably done this way. Because like that's all that programming is really. So I think the questions are like what are the main structs that maintain the state? And then how is everything connected with the control flow to manage the flow of data? How it's going to change based on the impulses you have, which is just the mouse and keyboard. It's going to be the other struct. So what I'm trying to understand also is obviously the shaders. So what parts this comes from, I think this one I remember from the tutorial, from Learn OpenGL. It tracks the events or something like that. It's a function to see if there was any events that happened. Maybe you should look into. Probably the first thing that I should try to do is just see what function is responsible for the window there, changing the color, and then how the. I remember seeing, but I think it was from the other project that there are default shaders. I'm not gonna close the other project because I'm probably gonna have to copy the code from that project into this one. So maybe I should write this down. I think I'm gonna do what I always do, just create another spreadsheet and then put here on the root of the project and then just write all this stuff. So there's the context, which is the main thing. This one probably manages the whole application, the whole GUI on all the scenes, I think. Then it has inside of this, it's very similar to, not really sure, but Python, like the logic. So have some variables, probably all this struct here are gonna be for the data for each one. But I'm not really sure if I think I wanna write down the main ones first. Then I will look into all of these like single ones. So this one is the other one. Just gonna put window or app. But maybe it's the same actually. But this is inside of the. But it's probably the same thing. So I think what it does is just refreshes. Maybe not. Like when you change the scene for, let's say I put a button that changes from one visualization to another. I think it just erases the, as it is here. It's not gonna cache the state of the other one. I think. So it probably just stores one thing at a time. It looks like he's holding the shader data. Since there is a visualization there, I assume that probably they have a default shader. ImGui has, and then that's how they are building the other stuff. So I think probably the best thing to do is just to look into that. I try to see if I can find the default shader that they are using, how they're setting it up, and how does that event works with the button there. And then try to change the shader to something else, obviously, or add another shader. Or And so this is it has to be the color button. So this one is the one that's how they create. One question that I have, obviously, is whether or not. So obviously here they're using this struct that they created on the library to manage the data for the color, and there's the other ones that I seen on the other thing here. It's probably all like the vector one and all this stuff like that. So the question is, should I use this stuff? Because obviously they use it to manage the state. So should I use it? So the problem with using these ones is that I'm gonna couple the stuff that I built with this, which is not very good. So I think I'm gonna have to see on the Threepp how they do it. But I think they also have a class. Well, the issue is that like I'm gonna have to use a namespace as well. I wanna avoid using namespaces. If I remember, I'm not 100% sure, but I think I've seen a video from Jason Turner saying that you should avoid using namespace, but I don't remember really well why. But like the thing that I didn't like about using that they use a bunch of different namespaces is that it makes it a lot more confusing to understand what's going on. So obviously the downside of not using namespace is that you're like polluting the global space with the names of your variables. But I think that it makes sense for him to make it like that as a library because obviously if you don't know why people are gonna use the thing, so it makes sense for him to do. But since it's the core of the stuff that I'm gonna do, I think it makes more sense to remove the namespaces and just like put my own names. So I think probably the best thing to do is just to do it in the same way that he did it on the Threepp and just use my own names. Probably just gonna use vector 3. I think that's the name that he gave there. So this is one thing. The other thing is the shaders. So I have to see. It's probably this thing here. This function. So this is the main window. This function is a relationship, the state of the window itself. And then this one is probably the state of the GUI, the object inside of the window. So yeah, this is one window, one GUI window. And the other one is gonna be, well, this is separate from the other one. Interesting. So I'm not really sure what is this. Oh, it's because I put this one as false. I think I put this one as false because I was trying to debug and build the thing. So this one is not showing. So this is equivalent to one of the windows. This side should be the one that's because it has a clear color function. So the demo window is probably the other one. It has to be. But it doesn't look like there is anything related to shaders here. So it has to be on one of these functions. It's probably the draw data. This function probably has the shaders. So it makes sense because here, like you're changing all the values you're gonna use, and then on the other one, like at the end, you update the shaders. So if I remember correctly, GLFW, it's this function here probably. They use double buffering technique, which means that you pretty much create two different ways to store the state. The buffer is just the place you're gonna send the memory to store the state thing. So you have one buffer, which is the actual buffer that is being visualized. It's the data that is being visualized at the time. And then you have another one where it's gonna be used to update the thing. So you update one buffer, and then once the buffer is ready, then you swap them. I think that's what this function does. So this code here has to be related to this, and this one has to be this, I think. Yeah, GUI demo. It's probably a default window that they use to show what you can do. So one thing to understand obviously is this, how is updating there, but the other thing is maybe you should look into the shaders, try to see the shaders first. So I guess the viewports, from the viewports, guess the first one. Backend rendering function. And it's going to store inside of this draw data. So this one just gets the data, and the other function probably renders. So this is probably a struct that is going to keep track of the states of the thing. ImGui draw data. Whatever. So the main thing I think is probably better to it's not that hard to understand this, so now I should focus on trying to understand the shaders. How are they building the program and the shaders? And then what would be the best way for me to do it? The annoying thing is gonna be like restructuring everything. That's the problem. But I think it's like a lot more clear on my mind now. Like it's gonna take a lot of time. There's no way to avoid this. So, but I do feel like it's getting more and more clear, the calculations and how everything works. The biggest thing is kind of like not stopping me, but the issue with doing everything from scratch is that I'm gonna have to incorporate a bunch of things from C++, and then the concern that I have is like the memory, and because it is a lot more annoying to debug now. Maybe that's something I've been contemplating as well, if I should do or not, because I can solve the mistakes that I'm getting, but it feels like it's not the best way to do it. Because most of the errors on C++ are going to be segmentation faults, or the thing about the symbols. And it's really annoying. Like I can do it because the way that I solve it is just by thinking like how I'm doing things and then how everything comes together. So like just from first principles and then trying to test different stuff. But obviously I would like to go over the code. I think that's make it easier. But I don't like that much the way that and also I don't want to depend on the way that you do it with Visual Studio Code, which is just to create the VS Code folder, .vs Code folder, and then you put tasks, JSON, and launch JSON, and then you use the debugger. But maybe that's what you should be doing. But it feels kind of annoying because you have to set it up like all the time for all projects you're gonna do, which I don't like that much. Maybe I can just get away with just using reasoning to try to solve everything instead of trying to print. Just think about what. But obviously, the more complex it becomes, it's gonna be harder. So at some point, I'm gonna have to think about it. But I think also is like it's gonna come with time. The more I build, the easier it's gonna become. So it just tracks if it's valid. Hmm. So I think this just manages this thing here. So the question I have is obviously where is the data being stored? The data that is gonna be. I think that's on the other function. there was something about this. Is this thing? So it's just returning the struct on the other one, because this is going to be destruct. So it returns the address of the struct. And another thing that I've seen from Jason Turner video, it seems like that this is not the best way to return things. I don't remember exactly why. It's some compiler stuff that I don't. But the best way, according to him, is just to like explicitly declare the. So do the if else statements, because this I think, but it's probably just when it comes to strings, because the example he gave is with strings. So there's something that goes on the compiler. I'll be right back. I think it just returns this struct. So I have to look into the other function. Hmm. And so this is definitely the function that draws everything. So first you put everything that you want to update, so the GUI elements and the data. Then at the end you call this function with the other struct. And then these functions here are gonna build the texture, the buffer, everything. So what I have to understand is how these things are being. I guess I can create my own thing as well. So if I just copy this function, I'm not really sure though. As always, the thing that is going to be hard is like which way is the best way. I should look for this. 'Cause the thing is, so I guess this is not the function that sets up the buffer. It's just getting the values from the buffers, from the shaders that were set before. So it's probably some other function that's is gonna actually create everything in the beginning. Probably, yeah, it makes more sense because you create everything outside of the loop, the rendering loop, and then you just do the rendering inside of the loop, obviously. So it does make more sense. So it's probably one of the functions that initialize the window or something like that, that have the, it's probably one of these, that's this one, that have the default shaders, some default shaders. So obviously one question I have is whether or not should I use one of these functions. Should I use the default shader? Yeah. Maybe I should spend some time. I'm gonna go over the functions first, then I'll spend some time thinking about it. Because one situation is you have one default shader and then you just change the data for the default shader, and then it's our responsibility to create a logic that is gonna manage all the shaders or all the programs, and then you just call some function from ImGui that updates the default shader with the whatever data you have, or the other possibility is that you can have multiple different shaders or programs. I think that one makes more sense. You should be able to create multiple different ones because what if you want to use multiple different programs in the same visualization? So it should be possible to have multiple ones. Or just something stored on the, I think I wrote this one. It's just the data stored inside of the context. It's gonna be this thing here. Oh, here's just creating a bunch of variables. Then these are definitely OpenGL functions. So it just puts the whatever active texture it has on this variable in the current program. So so this is the vertex array object, which store the states of the vertex buffer objects, which is specifying how you should structure. So from what I've seen, you always send an array, a unidimensional array with floats that are going to be the data that represents what points you want to draw. So you send one point at a time, and then the vertex buffer object is just a specification of how the array should be perceived, let's say, by OpenGL buffers. So how the OpenGL buffer should get the data from the array in order to have the points. And then you can specify where the data begins, how much is the data, so if it's like 2 floats or 3 floats or 4, because obviously it's going to depend on the variable, and then how many indexes it has to go to the right until it finds the next piece of data. Because I think you always should like do everything on the same chunk. So let's say you want to put data for 2 different points from or from one point in a texture or something like that, you can always you have to always maintain the same pattern since the beginning. So let's say you send 3 points to the vertex data and 2 points to the texture. Then you have to tell that's OpenGL that the next point is gonna be you have to gonna have to jump over 2 indexes to find the beginning of the next point. As far as I understand now. Is one of the parts that I really don't like that it seems very confusing from OpenGL. But maybe it has to be that way because of the way that the GPUs work and the way that you have to set everything up. But yeah, so then after you create the object, which is just an array that contains the specification, it's an array in the specification of how you should read the array to get the points or get the values of the variables you specify inside of the shader, the vertex shader. Then you put this inside of this vertex array object, and then the vertex array object is gonna store the state, so you don't have to specify again how to do it. You can always reuse the same array and same specifications to draw everything. So this is getting that, and then I think this call here is probably not really sure. Maybe it's drawing. I think this one is the one responsible for drawing stuff. This one is definitely the one so it's just gonna use the active program to draw. So I think the one that draws. So probably these functions are the one that draws stuff. And draw elements. So now I have an idea of how it's writing stuff. So I want to find where it initializes the shaders in the program. It's probably not this one, because this one is related to gel. So that should be this one. So it has to be this struct here. I think it's similar to the way that raylib works. The raylib obviously works with the array. So I think this one is just one struct. And then these values are going to be the ones that's... So the location, I think, is the place in the inside of the shader that the variable is going to be specified. So it probably uses this thing to access the value of the variable and then passes data. I don't understand if this is for both the vertex and the fragment or just one of them. That should be just an empty thing. It just allocates size, I think. It's gonna allocate size based on this value here. Turn malloc size. So it returns a pointer to the placing heap that is based on the size, which is based on the other... Oh, the pointer, I think, there. It has to be based on this size of type. Yeah, so it just creates a pointer to the heap. Kind of complicated, to be honest. Maybe there is a better way to do this. I'm not really sure. But what it's doing is just creating just using new and then creating a place on the heap, a pointer to that place that is going to have this size, the size of this struct here, which is the struct that is going to store the whatever related to the shader, I think. Yeah, it seems like it's not doing anything though. So maybe it's another, but that's the only function that it has here. Maybe it's these ones. It can't be these ones because related to the other stuff. This one doesn't make any sense as well because it's just a struct. So it just, I think it's a global, the context is a global variable and then this function initializes to that's ImGui struct, I think. ImGui context struct. This one. This is creating a place on the heap. So it just allocates on the heap and then creates a pointer to this place on the heap. It's gonna have this size. And then it's gonna return this. So it doesn't make any sense though to there must be a place, like I must be missing something because it doesn't make any sense to just initialize the structs and then not do anything. Like, the thing is that ImGui doesn't have, at least the way that I downloaded and set it up, it doesn't have any shader code. So maybe it's possible. Yeah, I think it is actually possible because to change the color of the background, don't need shaders. That's the thing. So maybe, yeah, maybe it's separated, I think. Like I have to be the one that creates all the logic, and then I just have to call the. I think that's how it works. So like you create all the logic and all the other stuff, and then you just create another. You just call another thing here. You just call this function twice, and then you pass your own data, probably. Hmm. Yeah, but this is a problem because then I don't understand. So maybe I'm gonna have to look into the documentation or something like that. Because the biggest question is what is the best way to do it? Because obviously they have the shader that is gonna have the states of the thing. So, but it doesn't feel like it has all the things you need to actually draw the things. Like this stuff is not gonna be enough, I think. So the question is like, how should you set this up? But the problem is I don't think they have that on the documentation. So one approach obviously is try to create something with this. But I don't like this very much. So maybe this the better thing to do is just try to implement the other one. And then I just pass my own function instead of using their struct. But then the issue with that is maybe it doesn't work because of the yeah, because the thing is so I have to understand what kind of things they're calling inside of this function here. I think that's the thing because I'm gonna have to call this to integrate them, I think. Because I have to integrate the OpenGL thing with the ImGui so that once I change visualizations, the context is updated with whatever I do. But if that's the case, then I'm gonna probably have to use the structs that they are using, which is not very good, I think. Mhm. So obviously this is the place that they check to see the buffers and then they call using this, I think. They get the buffer data based on the array buffer. But I think this is it's kind of like but I'm not really sure if it's my thing or if it's just confusing by nature because of the way that they set up OpenGL. But it just feels very confusing, like because you have to set up. So as far as I understand, when you call the functions that are gonna draw stuff using OpenGL, it's just gonna draw based on whatever you set it up in the beginning. So I think that the gel use program does that probably. So like you set up the program, and then I think you call gel use program inside of the loop, and then based on whatever you set up in the beginning, whatever current shader program you have, the when you call the functions that are gonna draw, they're just gonna draw based on the shaders you set it up, or the buffers you set it up actually. So the thing is kind of confusing is that like they are not, but maybe that's the nature of the thing. They are separate, so like you have to keep track of at what parts you set it up. But maybe that's why like you should do classes. Then it's a lot easier. But you have to keep in mind, and that's probably like the reason why 3JS does it the way that they do, and Threepp does it the way that they do. You just create a class, and then you just have a vector or something like that. You append everything to, and then you call one function that loops over that vector, and then it just calls the functions to draw for each one. And then each one sets up its own buffer, and then it calls the OpenGL stuff that it's gonna draw. It's very annoying to think about the like all the details of this. So I'm not really sure what's the best way to go about it, to be honest. Because I think I have to integrate to. I'm probably gonna have to integrate, so use some stuff from ImGui based on these functions here, because these are the functions that are gonna run every loop. So the ones that interact with OpenGL. So I have to understand how each one of these works, and then what is gonna call automatically which one, and then how should I set up the buffers so that this function runs or draws the stuff that I have on my own buffers. But I have no idea how to do that now. This stuff is gonna relate it to this struct as well, so and this one I didn't look into. So obviously what I assume is happening is that, but that's the thing that is confusing though, because it depends on the values here. So this is obviously supposed to, so they're recreating the vertex array every time on every loop. But then like what does it mean? Because if you can only use, maybe you can only use one vertex array object at a time, and then it doesn't matter, I have to set it up, but it's kind of, don't really like that, to be honest. So like if you use this, you have to recreate the vertex buffer object every time, because they're recreating the vertex array objects. So what I assume is happening is just passing this always, and then it's generating the vertex array based on this vertex array object. So it's just consuming the floats you pass, and then it's calling based on this. I don't like this obviously, because I don't want to do orthographic projection. Hmm. And this one is the one that sets up, is gonna set up a matrix. So I think that this is probably gonna be an integer that determines, it is a GL int from the struct. This one probably stores the data. I think I wrote down, yeah, this one. So this is linked to this one, to the context. This one stores the state of the data. And then this struct is gonna be these integers. So this function is one that's talking about. So this is the, so I think I get it now. So like this is gonna be the value, the place of the variable inside of the shader that you declare. So you have to initialize the struct outside of the, so you initialize, I'm not really sure. Because it's gonna get it from the context, so maybe you have to just assign based on the context. I guess from here. So it's this value here. It's on the IO, which is another struct. So it's context IO and then this backend render user data. I should have once on this one. So. And then it's gonna be this one here. So I think that the way that you do it is just by, so what I have to do is just get the values here inside of this function. I don't remember, I think it was here. Yeah, so I have to get these values. And it's based on this one. So all these functions are just setting up the buffer to render stuff. And then you just change the, so based on the way you set up the shader, you're just gonna change, you're just gonna link the value of this value here to the projection matrix. So you create inside of the shader, you create a variable that's matrix, it's a 4x4 matrix, mat4, which is going to be the projection matrix. And I think you have to create the projection matrix to pass. But OpenGL probably has a function that that creates the matrix. But here they are. This is the thing. They are creating the orthographic projection here. So obviously I don't like that. So I want to have the other one. And so what they are doing by default is just getting just updating the place of the variable with this value. And then but I don't understand this because like they don't have shaders, that's the thing. Like how does that work? Because this is gonna be like the struct that I saw that time. That has the geo ints that are gonna hold the states. So it uses that struct to call those functions, and then based on that, it passes the other value and then updates the value of the variable inside of the shader based on that function. But what doesn't make sense to me is that like it seems that they are forcing you to do the projection, the orthographic projection. So maybe, and this is another thing, maybe there's there's more, you can do two different shaders at the same time. and then one, like the default one of the background is orthographic projection. Doesn't make a lot of sense. This is gonna be a pointer, function pointer. This also doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not a function pointer, it's a pointer to a void pointer. I think I'm confusing the things. Because it's not going to be this struct, it's going to be this void pointer. So I don't understand very well. But this is from this. I was looking to the beginning there. Because this one is going to be, I think it is correct, probably. So this one is, like this connection here is correct. If the context doesn't have the IO, then the IO has this thing here. I think it's because I was seeing this function here. Yeah, that's how. So it's a value inside of the. This thing I don't understand. So maybe there is a function or a if condition there that I didn't see. So it's using the program. So I think you should. So let me think about what kind of questions I have. It's quite obvious now that like this struct here is the one that is responsible. So the values inside of the struct are going to be those integers, and like this are going to specify what shader you're using. So like it's managing the shaders. But what is not clear to me is like how to structure everything outside. That's the thing that I'm struggling to understand. Yeah, so and this is the thing as well, because so like this is the other stuff. But maybe no, I think it does make sense because you can put any integer you want. Yeah, but it's kind of confusing. So like what is happening here with the functions is just that function, like the first value is going to specify the location of the variable inside of the shader. Then I think this is, so like this function is consuming the array from the buffer. And you are specifying how you should consume the array. So like one thing I don't like is that this is going to be like true values. So they're specifying a vector of true to pass as the position. So like this, it seems that this function is just based on the like two-dimensional. Yeah, it's just two-dimension visualization. So here you specify a vector of true for the vertex position variable, which you specify inside of the shader. Then here is the location. So like let's say on the shader you put the location 0, you would initialize this struct here, which is this one, with this value equal to 0. Then you would the thing would know that is supposed to replace the value of the buffer, which is the data you send to the buffer, the vector of floats. You should replace the value inside of the shader for whatever the location of the variable is inside of the shader. So the variable is location. Let's say you initialize a variable called a position inside of the shader, and it's going to be a vector true. And then you make the location equal to 0 for the variable. Then you would initialize this struct with this value equal to 0. So you would replace the value for each time that each cycle that it runs the shader code. It's going to replace that variable with the values of the vector that is consuming based on what is currently binded by the buffers based on these other calls here. So this is the vertex buffer object that it binds. So it is also specified on the same struct. Then the elements, so it binds this stuff on the buffer, which you have to specify, I think, as well. So you specify the data you're gonna send based on this vertex buffer object. Then here is specifying how you should consume the data to replace the values of the variables. Then I think that here is the stride. I don't remember. No, I think this is the size of the data. So the size is gonna be this, and then the other one is the stride, I think. No, this is the stride, and this one is where the data starts on the vector. So if the data starts at the position 0, like the data that is going to be equivalent to that variable, if it starts at the index 0 on the vector you are passing as data, then this would be 0. I think and this is the stride, which is how many steps you have to go each time to find the other data. And is equivalent to that. So it looks like, yeah, it's a vec2. They tell you to send. And it's gonna have position, UV. So obviously I don't like this because now what is very confusing to me is how should I structure things outside. Like maybe I shouldn't use this function, should use something else, and then it's completely separate. But then that wouldn't make sense because it needs to have a connection between the two. So that's kind of the problem, because if that's the case, then it really sucks, because then they are forcing you to have an orthographic projection visualization with the vectors of 2, and then they're forcing what kind of template you should use to interact with the buffers, which I don't like. So I don't think that's the case. So I have to look more into how it works. I think that's the function that I was looking at. But maybe there are separate things, because that would also mix. But then how do you... Yeah, maybe I'm thinking about it the wrong way. I think that the bridge should be between the... Yeah, I think I'm thinking about it the wrong way. So ImGui is just responsible for the GUI elements, and then you have the option to use their drawing things if you want, but it's not necessary, because the bridge is between GLFW, which is the thing that handles the windows. So I think that the code to connect is probably related to the window. So this thing here. So like this creates the window, but this is the problem because you have to synchronize them. So maybe they have to be connected. Because let's say I do the OpenGL visualization using my own shaders and my own stuff outside, then like how would I know that they are both the GUI elements and the visualization are related to the same scene? Now obviously I can create my own stuff to like other structs should synchronize both, but then it feels kind of bad. So I assume that ImGui should probably have something like that, and I think that this is the stuff that I was seeing there related to OpenGL. But if it forces you to put things a certain way, then it's kind of bad. So I'm not 100% sure if I'm understanding correctly how it works, or if like I'm not understanding very well. Maybe spending time looking at the GUI stuff is gonna help as well. Because I assume that the GUI is probably done with the same, and maybe looking into the GUI elements, because maybe they use shaders, but I think that doesn't make sense. It can't be that they use shaders because it doesn't come with any shaders, like any shader code by default, unless there is shader code on one of the C++ files, which is possible. But it doesn't seem like it comes with shade, except for the Vulkan thing here. But I'm not using Vulkan, so I don't think he's using the shaders here. Maybe it is though. I'll be right back. Let me go back to the. But that's the thing is because I'm not gonna use shaders. Just change the value of the color here, and then it's using this value to call this stuff here. That's the thing. So like, it's very easy to understand how this one works, but it doesn't give me anything about how I should do the other stuff. Maybe if I look into the GUI elements now. It's taking a long time to find the function. I think that's yeah. Based on ChatGPT, they are different. This is the reason why I saw this stuff here. I don't understand why it's a void pointer. It doesn't make any sense, sure. What makes sense is that actually this is gonna be it's typecast casting here. Just a pointer to this, I think, because of the cast. Yeah, that's probably what's happening. But I don't understand why do this though. It wouldn't make more sense to initialize like this type when you initialize the struct for the IO. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Hmm. So I understand how it works, but I don't like the part that it seems very weird to me is the orthographic projection thing. So basically the way that it works is that it's gonna be based on this. So whatever you wanna draw, you have to structure the data based on this stuff here inside of the viewports, which is gonna be inside of the context. So you probably have to specify before, or specify inside of the loop as well. So like it's basically gonna be the vector of positions, I think. So it's gonna be inside of the struct. This is the struct. So let me remember how it passes through the other stuff. It's taking a long time to find stuff. So this is gonna be the struct that passes. But it doesn't make sense. Like it's weird that it forces you to. And maybe I'm misunderstanding how it works. I think they shoot different types of data based on this. So I think that's the orthograph projection is this data from ImGui. So like I think I understand now what's happening. So you have two different structs. One is the struct that is going to be the actual visualization you're doing with OpenGL. And this draw data struct is going to be the one related to the GUI elements, I think. So that's probably why it forces an orthographic projection, because it's not actually the visualization you're going to do. It's just the GUI elements have to be on 2D. I think I understand now. So the draw data is just related to the GUI elements. And then here's setting up on this function. It's setting up the render for the GUI elements. But the thing, yeah, it doesn't make sense because this one, like this one is being used. So maybe it's the other way around. Maybe this, maybe maybe it's the other way around. So the draw data is the stuff you determine, and so you have to specify inside of the struct there, because the draw data is going to be a struct. So I think that's how it works. So the BD is the one related to that's why it's a vector 2D, two-dimensional vector, because these visualizations are related to the GUI elements that they have. So maybe I should look into the other, the thing that is gonna help me is the other functions that they have to draw this stuff. The GUI components. It's gonna help me clarify that. And then this one is the one that you have to send. But because I didn't initialize with anything, it's probably just an empty struct. But so I just used for the size here. And the only reason why it passes is for this size here, display position. So you probably, the way that it works is it's kind of similar, I think, with Raylib. So like this is probably the vector of the stuff that you want to draw. So you create a bunch of these structs here with the data. And then you append to this one, and then it's gonna render that. And then you are responsible for creating the functions that are gonna draw the OpenGL stuff on the screen. And the ImGui just use this as a bridge between your stuff and ImGui. So I just understand. So let's see what this is. I'll draw this. It's gonna be really annoying, to be honest. I think I'm gonna have to spend a bunch of time thinking about how should I structure everything. 'Cause I understand now, I think it's getting more clear in my mind, but it's gonna be a pain in the ass to set up everything. The biggest challenge is how should I structure everything at the beginning. The end of the frame. All command lists surpass to your ImGui render draw list. Each dir ImGui window contains its own ImDraw list. Use ImGui get window draw list to access the current window draw list and draw custom primitives. Can interleave normal ImGui calls and adding primitives to the current draw list. I think I should view. The question is, what is the best way to go about it? Like, should I try to do it with a simple shader first? Or should I just call the other functions? Because another thing I'm gonna have to do is probably I'm gonna have to simplify the shaders and everything. I don't think I'm gonna, because I don't want to spend a bunch of time trying to figure out what's going on here. Because I really don't like the way that they did the CMake structure. And they recommend using VC package for the external stuff. I don't like that. So I think that the best thing to do is just to try to incorporate file by file. But if I do that, I'm gonna have to look into all the shaders and then try to understand what is going on. I think it's here that I put the code there. So probably what I have to do is open these shaders, try to see which one I was using on the other project. It's probably match basic vertex. So I'm gonna have to go over one by one, I think. And then replace just these values, then just get the source for the shader. I still don't understand how it works really well with this include here. I think it just gets from whatever path you have. So it's just from the folder. If you don't specify, it's just relative path from whatever the shader is specified. So it's gonna be a lot of work. Think about it. Because the problem is, like, I'm gonna have to spend a bunch of time doing this. I'm trying to think about what is the best way to structure everything in my mind. Like, what is the best? So obviously, I have to merge the two somehow. So I have all these complex codes on this project here that I'm gonna have to deconstruct everything. And then there's this one. So I have to, maybe it's better to start from like very simple. So just do some very basic shaders and then try to render them using this stuff here. Probably that's the best. Then once I do that, then I can merge. But it's gonna be very annoying in the beginning, I think. Because the biggest issue is the data. That's the problem. I'm not really sure if it's worth it to try to do a simple one because of the data. It looks like it is accepts to. I need to clarify more this one. I forgot where was that. Yeah, this it doesn't make sense to me if like force you to do a vector of two. I thought maybe it's this one. No, but this is the clipping space. Yeah, I don't like this to be honest. So what should I do? And it seems like his own 2D as well. Hmm. I think I have to separate the two. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Hmm. So I'm gonna have to do two things. One is think about. So probably the best thing to do instead of trying to do everything from scratch, just try to copy the functions that's. This is the problem. Like the things that were actually I was having problems compiling are the functions that manage which shader is gonna be used. So I think what I have to do is just deconstruct them and then just use from the base the classes of the geometry, like get the geometry and the material that I want to render first, then the specific shaders for each one. So probably copy all the shaders as well, all the shader chunks and libs, and then just get the specific. I'm gonna get the sphere first probably. So I need to get from this one and then the example, and then put them on a. This is probably the best thing to do. So I'm just gonna copy this code and then get the shaders that are the specific shaders I was using on the other project. I think I'm gonna have to get all of them and then see if it works. Just test, because all of them include the other ones. And then try to render a simple thing first. So, but the way that I think you have to do it is like separate the GUI components, then you have to render the other stuff separately. So just copy the functions from here to render the stuff, because here is on the canvas class that they do it. And then there's a one function here that's is gonna call the same stuff that the other one's calling, the glfw window stuff. So just, I think it's on the render function, or this one. Is this animates? I'm pretty sure it's this function. Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much the loop that they're using. So it's pretty much the same thing. So I would only get this stuff here, and this is probably the thing that is on the class that is going to decide what stuff you render based on what you added to the scene. So it's pretty much the same. And then it allows you to put a callback here, I think, as well. So what I can do is just figure out what these functions do and then put the code directly there. That's probably the best thing to do. And this is probably a struct from the class that keeps track of what objects or what classes you put there instead of the scene, I think. Just a priority queue of the tasks. And this is just a pair. So let me, because the issue with that is that then like how do I, because I'm gonna have to create another function or something else, like other structs and things like that, to merge the two. So that's like the GUI elements are the same for the visualizations. They are connected for each scene. That's kind of the problem that I'm thinking about. I'm not really sure if there's a better way to do this. But from the stuff that I'm seeing here, it seems that you shouldn't draw stuff using ImGui. The ImGui is just for like the stuff that they provide is just related to the GUI components, and then the OpenGL visualization you have to do on your own. But based on this example here, it doesn't have anything. Maybe they have other examples on the GitHub repo. It doesn't seem that it has any connection with the 3D OpenGL visualization you can do. There isn't any function to connect the context of the GUI with the OpenGL stuff. Besides the 2D elements, obviously. And I'm obviously gonna have to. I think I'm gonna spend some time looking at the functions that of the GUI, because I'm gonna have to create a bridge between the GUI elements and the whatever is happening on the visualization as well, obviously. So, but I think you do that based on data, just like they did there on the example. So like yours is your responsibility to manage the data and the OpenGL visualizations, and then you just pass the data to these functions here. It's probably how we do it. Or create a function that's whenever this thing changes. So I have to spend time looking at the GUI function to see how the functionality works. I think this one is probably the most interesting. Slider floats. And so this one. The question is what happens. Because obviously I would want to connect that with the graph. I don't see anything that connects, like a callback or something like that. And the question I have in my mind right now is, if I change the value of the GUI here, then how do I connect? Like, how do I put functionality for something that to happen as the value changes? That's the thing. With button, I think is easier. This one returns a boolean, I think. So with the button, I think that is easier because then you just do like this, and then you change based on whatever variable you have, you just put the functionality here. But with the float, you need to know the value. That's the problem. But I guess if you pass, maybe you create the data outside and then you pass. That's what's happening here. Yeah, I think that's how it works. So you're just gonna return a boolean. So you could do the same thing. Maybe I should try to do this now. Should I don't know if how should I do this? I think I have to. No, this is gonna be a float. I think I have to convert or use another function. I have to include the thing. That's why. Maybe this. I don't remember. Oh yeah, that's this one. So what's the problem? Oh, I'm not doing the if thing. I should put this on a variable, and then I should. Yeah, if that's why. I'm not really sure if it is a boolean that's it returns a boolean. So I think yeah, this should be. That's probably how you do it, and then you can pass whatever data you want there. And if it changes, it's gonna be. So in my case, I would create the graph, and then based on the position of I would just send the position. But that wouldn't make sense. That's the problem. Well, actually, it would be the physics. So I create a class, physics engine. Then the class has the graph, and then I have the function that's going to be the Barnside simulation. Then that function has the variables, and then I pass the variables from the physics thing here. Then when it changes, it's going to change the values, I think. So they're probably detached, I think. That's how it works. Nice. So I think I get it now. Yeah, the way that it works. So you're probably responsible for managing the connection between them, which is kind of annoying. So I think the way to do it is that I get the functions from the other project, then I create another. First, I'm not going to create another class, I think. Let's get the other functions. Then first draw something using the other functions from the other projects. And you have to do it probably here after you draw the stuff, the GUI elements. Then you have to create a struct or a function that is going to connect the state of the GUI with the visualization. Or maybe you can use, you can have to connect them to through the other library. It's still not very clear to me though. Because if it is this way, it feels kind of like there's a lot of room for mistakes, I think. That's the problem. So maybe you should use some of these structs here that they use on GUI to connect your shaders with their stuff. Hey, what's up? It doesn't have, like, it doesn't seem that it has anything that connects both. So it looks like that's the way, but because this is, it seems to be only related to their stuff, the GUI stuff. So they probably don't handle the, like you are responsible for creating everything else. You have to create the shaders and all the other stuff, and then call OpenGL directly. I think that's how it works. So I have to implement the other project into this one, and then you have to think about. But I think I'm gonna spend some time. Probably watch videos and just try to read stuff online. Because the biggest thing for me that it doesn't make a lot of sense is like there should be a way. They should provide some data structure to connect, to manage the state, the link between the state of OpenGL shader functions, like your own custom shaders and the GUI. Because it makes sense that the scene should be, each scene of the thing should have the state for both of them. This is the stuff that I don't understand very well. You're studying for a game dev or for fun? I'm trying to create a project. So it's very complicated, but pretty much like a way to visualize parse trees. So the idea is to use, I'm trying to incorporate ImGui with another project that is a ported version of Three.js on C++ that's called Threepp that I found online. So I want to use this one to create the shaders and then use the ImGui for the GUI stuff. And then I'm probably going to use GLFW for the window. And then I had another project that I was creating a graph. So the idea is to create a graph using the Boost graph library, then create a physics simulation of barn sets, and then create the graph, use the Threepp stuff. I'm going to change some stuff, but try to use it to create the visualization of the shaders and all that other stuff. Then use the ImGui to create a GUI element that is going to be connected to that. And then use the barn sets code, which is another project for the physics simulation. So it's something similar to what I have now with I did on the front end, but I'm trying to do it on C++ now. And then later on, I'm gonna get the data that is gonna be from Python, some Python code that generates a parse tree based on grammar, and I want to visualize that. It's pretty much something similar to this, but it's very slow on the browser. That's the problem. It seems to be a lot slower now. Not really sure why, because I haven't changed this in a long time. Yeah, so I don't know. But the idea is to use ImGui to create this GUI element, and then Threepp to create the visualization. I'm not sure why it's very slow, but whatever. So I'm trying to understand ImGui to try to clarify what is the connection, and how should I manage everything, like on the high level? How should I put everything together? The beginning is very hard because I don't know anything, but it's gonna become more and more clear, I think. It's already like somewhat clear, but I think it's gonna take a bunch of time because it's very complicated. The shader code from 3JS is extremely complicated as well. Oh, so here it is. Huh. So they do have shaders. Uh, that's the thing that I was kind of finding weird because how is it possible? I think I've seen this the first time that I saw this off stream. I was looking into the code, but somehow this time I missed. So I think I overlooked that function the first time that I don't remember. So it's on this thing here. But I assume that these shaders are related to the GUI stuff, but it does make sense. So I think it's becoming more clear more. So they provide all the code for the GUI, and then you should do separate shaders and separate classes, everything for OpenGL or for 3D visualizations. And then I assume that I'm gonna have to create the camera and all the other stuff, like the projection matrix and stuff like that. So here they are creating the program. And then the data is obviously gonna depend, I think, on the whatever you call. So I think you understand they create these default shaders in the beginning with these variables, and then they use the other structs. This struct here, which already has it's gonna have the attributes, and then depending on which GUI element you're gonna create, it's just gonna be a different. It's gonna initialize the data, which is gonna be those rectangles, which I saw on another struct, and then it's gonna manage that based on this struct here, the locations, and then based on the location, it's gonna consume the data based on whatever you call here. whatever GUI element you're creating. I think that's how it works. And then the way you connect the bridge between the two is the data you pass to these functions. So, but the only thing that I don't understand yet is what is the best way to maintain the state of each scene to link both the visualization and the GUI elements. So in the same way that I had there on the Softbiz, because each scene is going to be a route on the website, I imagine. So I think that's the question I have, because if I do them separately, it seems like it leaves a lot of room for a mistake. So let's say that I do the ImGui elements, like I create a function and then I put all this stuff inside of the function, and then I pass the data that is going to be created by the physics engine to these functions here, so they are linked. The physics is linked with the visualization, and then I do the actual drawing parts of the stuff using the other library to render the shaders. Then the question is, like, if I put another GUI element that changes the visualization, it changes the scene, like changes the routes for another stuff, then like what happens? Because then it becomes a problem, I think. Like what happens with the states? Because the GUI is going to be separate from the thing. Dark here, so not strong. But I think I'm gonna stop soon because I have not been time. The thing is, I had to like spend a bunch of time watching videos probably. I was thinking about what I'm not really sure if I'm gonna spend all this time because there's a bunch of videos from this guy, but it seems that it's good. So I'm thinking about doing that, like trying to speed run this at 3x or 4x speed, and maybe searching other videos. Because it's gonna be very frustrating to try to do it, I think, in the beginning. Maybe I'm procrastinating too much to just try to do it and then face the errors. But before I start trying to do this stuff, I want to clarify this more. I want to see if you really is supposed to. The thing is, I don't remember. I think maybe they have a documentation. I didn't look into the. Maybe I have to spend time here. I think I'm probably gonna stop streaming and then try to, because I haven't read this stuff yet. So try to see if there is documentation or other stuff on the internet that's gonna make it a lot easier to understand. Oh, I remember seeing these examples here as well. So maybe I can find some code from someone else. Then it's gonna help me understand what is the best way to connect the two. Because yeah, first I have to clarify that more. I think is better. It makes more sense because if I start trying to do, it's gonna be a waste of time, I think. If I don't understand how I'm supposed to connect them. And after that, I think it's probably a lot more simple. The most annoying part is the CMake stuff, like trying to set up the shaders. That's very annoying. So I think I'm gonna stop streaming here. I'm just gonna read this stuff off stream and watch some videos and try to clarify more and more. Then next time probably start. I'm either gonna spend a bunch of time studying the shaders, which might be worth it as well. Like I want to study the source code here to really understand how they set up everything. And probably what I'm gonna do is just try to copy the. 'Cause the thing I don't know is that's like if I copy everything, there is gonna be everything coupled with everything else. So I'm not really sure which direction to go. Because it will probably be better if I try to do everything from scratch, but then it might take a massive time to do that. Because I don't have experience with C++, so like try to think about what thing should I do, what classes or what stuff should I use. Maybe the best way is the way that I just said, where I try to copy the tasks, which is gonna be this queue. Try to like just copy this thing here and just try to incorporate the functions inside of the thing first. But I'm gonna spend time studying this thing. And thanks, man. So I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna do this off stream, and I'm not really sure when I'm gonna come back. Probably it's probably gonna take like a couple of days, I think, to understand everything. But I'm gonna study this stuff. Then after I study this stuff, I'll think about what is the best way to just get whatever I need from here, and try to incorporate on the other one. The first thing is obviously try to do like a simple visualization. Like try to render each shape that I need separately first until I can render all of them. Then once I can do that, then I think I can I can think about the other stuff. Yeah. So I'm gonna stop here. Probably a couple of days from now, I'm gonna come back. So